Today we have with us Mr. Nilesh Gade. He is the Global IT Lead, Information Security and Chief Information Security Officer at Bekaert. A very warm welcome, sir.
Thank you, Bhumi, for inviting me for this session.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. It's been an honor. And also, you can, if you want, you can talk few lines on about yourself and how has your journey been in this industry for our CXO audience.
Sure, thanks for that, giving me this opportunity to have discuss on this. If we look my overall journey, I have approximately 22 years of experience into IT and information security, especially on the overall IT information security risk management. One of the most interesting aspect in my entire career is that in 22 years, I got an opportunity to work on various sectors. So my first organization was more on the government sector. Second was more on investment bank in European investment bank and the KPO and BPO on that. After that, I got an opportunity to work for a multinational ITS organization. And recently, before this, I got an opportunity to establish entire cybersecurity program for a payment bank. And now I'm with one of the global multinational organization. It's a manufacturing organization. So if you look at my journey, it's really interesting journey where I got an opportunity to work to various sectors as well as got an opportunity to establish entire SMS for at least 3 to 4 organizations. So that's I can say I'm quite happy with my journey as a cyber expert. It's a very dynamic area, dynamic domain, and it's a really passion to work into the cybersecurity where you can see that you can make a difference to the organization and the people. It's a more another, I say, hot topic at the organizations, government level, and at the everyone's life now.
Right. So it's been a commendable and a long journey, especially in this field of cybersecurity. And as you rightly said, that it's right now the current or the buzzing trend these days of how cybersecurity is important in our lives. So as a CISO or CISO, what are some of the challenges you face in ensuring the cybersecurity and information protection of a global organization?
Yeah, or me. So as I said, each organization, if you look at it, the cybersecurity is ideally a business risk, and for each organization, cyber is quite different. If you're working for an ITS organization, they are more related to how they can protect the data of their customers, which they are handling, or the applications which they're developing for them. That data security is quite different. If you work for a KPO or BPO business, they actually store process data, and that for them it's a quite different in terms of data. For manufacturing organization, then again it changes quite differently. When it's not only about IT security, but it's about the plant security, it's about OT security and cyber security. For a manufacturing organization goes one more risk is of the safety of people, because cyber attack can also lead to the safety issues on that. And if you go to purely for BFS sector, which is more advanced in terms of cybersecurity postures and maturity, you'll find they are more focused, being a mature, they are more focused on now cyber compliance. And it's more, how can you ensure that we have a proper security framework which is aligned to the RBI requirement or the regulatory requirements. So it's a different thing for different organization. If I look at from the global perspective, it's a different thing. We are actually a global manufacturing organization, which is in quite in advanced steel protection and steel coating and wiring transformation. And our business of operation, if you look at, we are a leading player of our various industries like automotive, constructive, energy, and consumer good. We are actually operating from different multi-locations, approximately 45 plus countries. And that's where the major challenges are. So if you look at managing cybersecurity across diverse location is one of the major challenge which you face, because there are variations in regulatory requirement. There is a cultural difference. There is a language difference. Just for our organization, there are 18 plus languages. So if we need to do any kind of mandatory policies or awareness program, we need to consider that we need to have those programs in 18 plus languages. So it's always that's a major thing where we have to develop the strategy to enforce consistent cybersecurity standards and policy, take consideration into regional requirements. Being a multinational organization, global organization, we are always, either my Europe is up and running, or it can be China or Latin America or India, Southeast Asia. So at any given time, the business operation is always working 24/7. Hence, we need to also ensure that our cyber security is also up and running 24 by 7. And that's another major thing. So we always have that kind of challenge to ensure, because if you look at the cyber attacker or cyber criminals, they are not going to see me whether whether it is a non-business hours or not. It's always they are there. So the challenge is that we need to ensure that the security monitoring, incident response, and maintain around the 24 clock security coverage. So that's another thing. Third thing which I will like to highlight is on compliance on international regulations. Since we are operating on multiple countries, as I said, 42 countries. So you can understand kind of regulatory requirements which we go through that, especially in Europe, if you have a GDPR, which is there. If you go to China, then the China data protection law is there. So all this makes more complex. It's more complex because you need to keep in mind every time when you do any kind of projects or security initiatives, all those needs to be considered. Another aspect is definitely is the talent management, or I would say global workforce. So my end users, they are quite connected remotely. They are across the country. In terms of global forces, we need to ensure whenever we need to make a security awareness program, we need to ensure that it is in multiple language. It is in their native language so that they can understand it. And being a manufacturer, again, another area is about not only white collar, but we have a lot of blue collar. So we need to retranslate the security policies on those languages. Just take an example. All our policies needs to be translated into the Chinese languages. And that's also bring another major risk for us, is especially when we talk about data leakage. It's not about English, but it's about the documents and the data which is generated in multiple languages. And it's become really big and tough when you need to review those documents, need to see and respond to the security and data leakage on that. Being a global organization, like any other CISO organization, we are also facing with an emerging threat landscape. So if you look at the modern cyber threat landscape, they are changing rapidly. Today's cyber criminals, if you look at, they are well equipped, they are coordinated, the attacks are more targeted. They are using one of the most latest modern technology like machine learning or artificial intelligence and all those things. So it's become a very, very challenging environment for as a global organization, as we have to deal with multiple regulatory requirements. We have to ensure that we have a security awareness program which is aligned to all the people they can understand. So that's an extra efforts we need to do. 24 by 7 operations has to be there. So it's more, I will say, more complicated. The scale is big, whereas the challenge, like any other organizations, remains same.
So what we can understand and interpret, and this having a strong cybersecurity framework is very essential in order to restrict the cyber attacks or the threats, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So, but at the same time, we see that data breaches and privacy concerns have become more relevant in the recent years. So how does Bekaert prioritize data privacy and protection? And if you could shed light on the steps you take to comply with the relevant regulation and safeguard sensitive information at the same time?
Yeah, so you are absolutely right. If you look at as I said, we are a multinational companies. We come under the regulatory requirements of many, especially the most of the countries now, nations have really come with their own data protection law. Whether it is China, in Europe, you already have a GDPR. We recently saw Ethiopia coming into that. Okay, so how we deal with it's I will divide this entire thing into two parts. One is the data protection and data privacy. For me, data privacy is slightly different area where you also not about data protection, but it's more about how you ensure the program on data privacy, how you understand the regulatory requirements, because the PI data, which is personal data, is quite different from organization, from country to country. That their regulatory requirements are quite different. So how we approach to this? First thing what we did is we ensure that we have a dedicated data privacy team or organization which supports that. So that was our first step in terms of data privacy. Second, we definitely did is what we call as a data regulation framework. We did an entire study of across 42 plus country to understand what are the regulatory requirements from data protection point of view, from data localization point of view, from cybersecurity and e-commerce. That help us to build an entire security framework where we know what are the security controls or what are the requirements of data thing. And one thing we made it very clear, and especially from the data perspective, GDPR is one of the most stringent data privacy. So that is became a minimum standard for us. So being an European organization, we ensure that we are always aligned to the GDPR principles and regulatory requirement that help not us into ensuring that we are quite compliant to the other regulatory requirements which are coming. And then the team works very to build the entire culture on data privacy. We are ensuring that not only is the cybersecurity, but data privacy is also part of the design phase itself. So by principle, we ensure that whatever we develop is not only secure, but it's also meet the required regulatory requirements. So that's embedded into our DNA of our product development itself. So that's, I will say, more from the data privacy perspective. If I go to the second part, which you talk about data protection is quite, it's more related to cybersecurity. It's a different domain because you're not only talking about data privacy, and as an organization will have many sensitive and confidential information. The organization deal with a lot of financial sales data. They deal with a lot of intellectual property. There are a lot of R&D data. There is a lot of data which is shared with the suppliers, partners, your customers. You have a lot of your strategic decisions. You are all you will have your plans, quality data. So there is a lot of sensitive data in organization, and it also need to be adequately protected. So for us, the data protection is the more holistic program where we ensure right from the beginning that only the authorized user have access to those environment and applications at any given time, whether they are connected within the Bekaert or they are connecting from outside Bekaert, whether the data lies within the organization, maybe in our data center or cloud environment, or we are trying to access the data which is our data in SaaS environments, because today there is a lot of data which is beyond an organization boundary. So definitely that is one. And as I said, we have an entire data security program which help us, right? So we did multiple I will say initiative. Was one thing what we did was a data governance project. The data governance project was initiated to understand what are our critical business processes, what are different sub-business process, and for each those business processes, what are different data sets which are related to that, and where these data sets are located, how and what kind of business impact they will have. So in case those data sets are not available, or their confidentiality, integrity, or privacy is breached, then what kind of impact it will have it. So that give us a very good visibility where our data are located, what kind of impact it will have it. That help us to define us what kind of security controls we need to implement it to ensure that data is properly protected. And then the second step, what we do is what we call as a data flow analysis, which help us to, because each data will have its own life cycle, right? From its data which is created to its when it is destroyed. It flows with different. Just take an example. If you are working on a particular presentation, it's the data gets created on your laptop, then it's flow to your central repository. It may flow through email. It will get maybe stored in certain application like O365 nodes. So we need to understand very clearly how the data journey is, from where it flows the entire data, which ensures, so that help us to identify how the data flow through various IT landscape, which help us to define which are our crown jewels, IT crown jewels. So the data crown jewels and where they are stored, processed, or transmitted in those IT crown jewels. So this was something which we did a second activity, which helped us to get entire visibility. Then coming to the governance, because it's ideally, if you look at, especially within the cybersecurity itself is a business risk. But when it comes to data security, business has to play a very important role, because finally it is a business which knows what is the importance of their data, what is the impact of that data, who should have an access to that data. So we ensure that we form something called as a data governance committee, which consists of the business partner, and we define the data owners and all those data stewards and all those roles which needs to be there to ensure that we have a good data governance. That's a prerequisite for any data protection. And now the third part, and more, I will say the fourth space which is there is more on the technology. Now you have your policies, your frameworks, which is properly defined. You know exactly what data you have it, where it is stored. It is very important now to enforce those security policy using technology. And there are various technologies which we have invested. We are working on that right from the beginning: data classification, data right management, DLP on the network level DLP, endpoint level P, And as I said, data, it's not only in your organization because the job goes beyond your organization. So it's very important you have a proper data protection using CASB solution where you have a full visibility of the cloud applications which are there and how the data is flowing it. Said that, definitely there are many other aspects which we always ensure that there is a proper backup and backup restorations. Processors are there, ITDR is there. Is at any given time, there is a proper identity and authorization so that right user has a right access, and wherever possible, mostly we implemented something called as a conditional access. So when based on the risk, it's decide what kind of security controls needs to be implemented or what level of authentication and authorization need to be done when you're connecting within the organization, outside the organization. So all this has helped us to build to a certain level what we call as an overall data security program. It's a program, it's a journey, and it has to be done in a paced manner. From department to department, it's quite different because something which is sensitive for me is quite. So we are very clear, and on that, when we talk about data security program, it has to be community based. Each community has to work on that. Another two major aspects which we did from the data protection perspective is that reduce the surface attack itself. So we ensure that where we are handling very sensitive informations, the team which are working on critical projects, sensitive information, we ensure that which is in laptop. So we implemented data encryption on laptop. We implemented encryptions on when the data is in transit. We ensure that data is properly encrypted when it is in backup. Also, we have very strong vendor or supplier risk management processes. So whenever we ensure that when the data is outside our environment, then there is a proper contract with our partner to ensure that the suppliers also put an adequate security holes to protect our data. And then definitely from overall governance, there will be always in the audits and assessment to ensure that everything what we describe and prescribe is always taken care.
Thank you so much for sharing in depth, especially in terms of, the distinction which you are talked about in terms of data privacy as well as protection, and sharing the highlights of the regulations that is so much necessary in order to protect the sensitive information that we carry. Apart from that, with this increasing technology, which you also spoke a while back about the AI and the ML based evolving technologies, we have been seeing that increasing adoption of cloud technologies and remote work arrangements have become prominent these days. So what are the key considerations for ensuring the security and privacy of data in these environments? If you could just acknowledge.
So it's if you look at today's modern IT landscape, it's very clear that you cannot. Perimeter security is no more a prominent in that. So you need to ensure that data is well protected when it's especially when it is outside your environment. But before that, you need to understand very clearly when you're talking about cloud. So I divide into two aspects of the cloud. One is the security of data or data privacy when your data is in the cloud environment, whether it is a SaaS service or it's a platform based or it is something like infrastructure or service. And second is definitely how you're going to there are a lot of security solutions and services nowadays itself is in the cloud, which help you to quickly onboard those security solutions to protect the organization. And those informations or say cloud infrastructure is also very, very critical, because if those get compromised, then entire your securities also get compromised. So what we did is very straightforward. First thing, we, as any security project, we do something called as a risk assessment. We did an entire risk assessment to understand what exactly our security posture right now is that. And based on that, we developed something called as the security for cloud security framework. And it's a complete a checklist, or you can say a framework, which talk about what sort of security controls we need to implement if we are going for with the SaaS service provider. Because if you look at cloud, is a shared responsibility order. So when you more you go from infrastructure to the SaaS, it's more you need to trust the cloud service provider. And I always believe the cloud service provider, it's more like a relationship. It's their partner, and you need to trust them. You need to trust on their security. If you ask me, you're already using a lot of cloud unknowingly, like we already use for email, or take an example, O365 Office environment. They are already in the environment. And if the organization like Microsoft are there, we are quite, or a big organization that we trust on their security and the security practices they are doing. So in terms of SaaS service provider, definitely this framework has helped us, and we ensure that whenever we onboard any new cloud environment, we do a detailed due diligence. We ensure that self-assessment is done. We rely on the certifications and third-party certification to understand. And the most important, as I said, this is a shared responsibility model. You need to make your cloud service provider responsible for security. Just merely seeing the certificate or will not. So we ensure that the required clauses are also in the part of the agreement, which help us that to ensure that the cloud service provider are equally responsible for the cloud. And definitely there are multiple security certification which we mandate, which ensure that we rely on third party, because as a we cannot do an audit or assessment of each and every cloud, not the it is workable model for the cloud environment that each and every customer works. So they need to work with certain trusted partners and certain international standards which give you assurance that organization is well protected. It's more like when a lot of outsourcing started. I mean, more multinational companies in Europe and US started doing a outsourcing to Indian IT services. They trusted Indian partners on the security, and they rely on certain certification like ISO 27001 or a SOC 2 certification. And that same approach, we need to ensure that we need to trust our cloud partner, and we need to ensure that they are legally bound to have that. Apart from this, we always go with the mindset that someday or something will happen, in terms of there will be an organization will always get hit by a cyber attack or data breach. And it's very important when you're going for the cloud, you need to ensure that they have a required mandatory cyber insurance with them, which help them to protect and define, and what kind of crisis management they have, what kind of security incident management process. It's very important that at the onboarding phase, we have an adequate security part of the contract. Once they are onboarded, it's a responsibility of an organization to do a regular due diligence to ensure what has been agreed between the two parties is adequately taken care of place. And the third is definitely when you decide that you no more require those cloud environment, it is also responsibility of an organization to ensure that all the data which lies in the cloud environment is adequately destroyed. So it's again an entire framework. We rely on the framework which ensure that we have a adequate cloud, and we do it for second half, which I said, when we do a lot of security solutions. Especially now, most of the security solutions are in the SaaS service world. So we ensure that we have adequate security done in that case also.
We would like to understand further that a strong cybersecurity culture is required. Yeah. And for that, employee awareness and education plays a crucial role in maintaining it. So how is Bekaert promoting cybersecurity awareness among employees? And if you could highlight the specific training programs or initiatives in that case comes into place to empower the employees or to become active participants in safeguarding the organization's information assets.
So it's indeed, if you ask me, the employees are the first level of defense, because finally when it comes to accessing particular application, emails, they are the folks who get targeted. So it's very important right from the beginning. As a principle, we always said that when we will implement for our cybersecurity program, we'll always ensure that we will give an equal weightage or focus on people and process along with the technology, because they are also very important that we have an adequate operating model, and it's the people skill levels for that. So when we're talking about security awareness and training, it is two-part again. For a general information, I mean, generally all employees, it's very important that we have a security culture. So when we go for a programs, we have something called as a security awareness week in October, which ensure that there are multiple security, I will say, sessions from industry speakers. We invite them so they can talk on different subjects. But what we do is slightly different. We don't talk about, say, organizational security, but rather than we try to impose how the security is important in their life. For example, as when we try to connect an employee on security, we talk how they can ensure that they can do a secure financial transaction. How can they ensure that their people, their parents, their kids are properly protected on social media? How can they ensure that the social media platforms which they are using how that can be secure. Everyone now have a smartphones, and we do a lot of financial transaction, banking transactions, social media. So how to ensure that your mobile device are well protected, how these applications are well protected. So we ensure what we emphasize on the security, because finally the principles are the same. If a employee understand the security of an impact it can have his own personal life, then it's very easy for them to understand the principles of security in the office environment. It's a culture. If you induce that culture at home, its same culture will flow into the office environment and vice versa. So we ensure that, okay, there are various ways we do it. We share regular awareness. We do a security week. We ensure that we use different platforms like Yammer and all those things. So on monthly basis to share the upcoming breaches which are happening, or some best practices which are happening. And then it comes to very specific training. Now, if you look at the organization, different people play different roles. So, and accordingly, the security trainings has to be done. If you have a team which is working on application development, then you need to have a specific training to them or awareness session, how to develop a secure application, what are the best practices you need to consider, how to ensure that security is a part of your development cycle itself. Being a manufacturing organization, we also have a lot, we are working with the plants and blue collar. So we have a separate training for them to understand what are the risks, cyber risks towards the OT environment, what kind of precautions they need to take care, what of controls they need to implement. So it's a various security awareness and training which we take it, so that it's a program which we ensure that not only we talk on something very generic, but how it will impact, security can impact, and they need to take security into their personal life, and how they need to ensure the security is properly taken care during their day-to-day work.
So what metrics or key performance indicators, or the KPIs we call it, do you track to measure the effectiveness of the information security program?
Yeah, so if you look at when we talk about cybersecurity program, we need to understand. So what we are doing, we are very clear in terms of that we will follow industrial standards like NIST cybersecurity framework. We'll follow ISO 27000. So our security program is quite holistic, that it's not only about protection, but it's also about detection, monitoring. It's about response and recovery, and all those areas, 5 areas, we want giving equal weightage. So when it comes to the KPIs, definitely the key performance indicator or key risk indicator, it's also changes based on what level of maturity you are, what kind of security controls or initiatives you are doing it. So it's right from what kind of budget we are spending, what kind of organization we have it, how we are doing on vulnerability management, whether it's your internal, external things, how you're doing in terms of red teaming, and there are many KPIs which is related to your primary controls like lifecycle management, in terms of how many legacy systems you have it, in terms of what kind of patch maturity you have it, which are the applications for which you are crown jewels, for which you have done the risk assessment, the closures, both internal and external, because it's also important to understand how the other organizations are pursuing you from external. So we have a couple of scorecard which help us to tell us how we are performing in terms of cyber risk from the external. So it's multiple KPIs which help us to define. It's all changes from things to definitely. Then there are that is something which I'm saying for us. Definitely more there are each department which are responsible for the overall security in that domain. For example, learning and development team, they keep ensuring that okay, all the employees are properly trained and training. If we do a lot of what we call simulation attacks like red teaming exercise, phishing attack, tabletop exercise, and all those things, we monitor what we have done, what we have targeted versus what we have done. So that's all about multiple KPIs. You can say 20 plus KPIs we do it. Another aspect when we talk about KPI, we need to understand very clearly what is the audience. So we have different KPIs for our board, different KPIs. The KPIs, what needs to be reported to the board, to our steering committee, to the CISO level, to the operational level. More you go to the down level, you need more KPIs which are more operational, and more you go higher, they need a snapshot of your progress. They need to understand what level of maturity you are at, because you finally board wants couple of things. I think the most important part, they want to know how mature your organization or how mature your cybersecurity program, and be benchmarked against NIST. So that's help us to give them a visibility, how we are progressing, how we are maturing in terms of cybersecurity program, and if are there any security major incident. So that also help us.
Right. So we can understand that KPIs are quite essential for the organization to track their performance and measure what could be the future.
You need to measure the program. You need to measure the what we call as an effectiveness of security control. It's very important. Whatever you're doing, especially in security, measure the effectiveness of security controls, how effective they are in today's world. So that's KPI help you to define and give some kind of analysis which help us to tell you how effective those are, because it's not about implementation of security control, but it's also important how effective they are in your environment.
Absolutely. So coming to the tech focus areas, if you could just walk us through the tech focus priorities over the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay, so when we talk about technology, definitely we have something called as we go with an approach called as a defense in tech and risk-based approach. And we have defined our entire security control or technical control framework, which for each different layer, whether we are talking about network level, application level, data level, identity level, and there are already a lot of security controls which we are implemented, and some are in security initiatives which are in progress and some are in plan. So if you ask me what are the major focus in the upcoming years, we are concentrating more focus on data security and the OT security. So data security, so now it is time where we feel, yes, now we need to go to the next level, where actually my dream is that security should be such that the data or the packet level itself, they should be able to protect. It should know each data packet should know who is authorized to access it, and it can accordingly protect itself. We will have to wait for that kind of technology, but definitely we are focusing right now on data leakage, data privacy technology, which ensures that we have a properly classified data. We have at any given time, we have a proper data monitoring, whether it is through an endpoint, whether it is through a network. So that is one of the major focus area from technology aspect, where we are trying to implement technology which will help us to form the data protection. Definitely being a manufacturing organization, so we want to go to the next level of our environment, which is more on core OT level, where we have where we have a PLC SCADA system. We want to ensure that they are also well protected, and we are investing heavily on something what we call as an advanced OT security solution, which will help us on that.
So where do you actually see that the industry is heading towards the next 5 to 10 years? What are the potential disruptors or factors that we can consider, in your opinion, would impact the industry in future?
If you ask me, I think the major disruption will start, and you can see already it has started, is technology will start getting embedded into each and every business process. I will say the product. Okay, so that will be because a lot of sensors, a lot of intelligent process will putting. If you look at cars, simply a car for something 15 years, they were more like a machines. Now, if you look at the car, they are more like a computer. So that's the difference. It will, and you will say it will go more and more, and it will be definitely. I think that's one of the area. It will be second area which I feel will be bringing a major disruption. We will started using technology in our webbing. A lot of technology will get embedded into our own body. That's a second, and then the third is definitely the artificial intelligence. It has a great potential, and I think the organizations which will use this technology will really make it disruptive in next couple of years. I think these are the three major areas which will bring in, which I feel will make a disruption in the next couple of years.
So, yeah, what we can infer is that technology is going to overpower in the generations to come.
It's a very difficult question. I will not go to that extent. I still believe that humans will control the technology. I still believe it okay, but it's how we are going to use it, to what extent we are going to use it, and whether it's like a single person using that entire technology, or the technology will be used by each and every person. That will decide it, whether everyone will be powerful and happy, or it's a couple of organizations which will rule because they have the latest and updated technology. It's all depend on that.
Right. So with this, we come to the end of the session. Thank you so much for giving us your time and sharing such insightful knowledge on today's session. We hope to see you again on such interactions.
Thank you, Urmi and Zia, also for inviting me and sharing my thoughts process. Thank you very much.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.